Visit an isolated community in Devon, whose existence may come as a surprise to some. The exiles, who are a legacy of the Second World War, our little Poland.
Pamiętasz kapry te nasze Poznania, wycieczki łodzią, spacery wśród skał.
At the end of the Second World War, disused army camps throughout Britain became homes for 130,000 Polish servicemen, their wives and dependents. The politics of peace had created an embarrassing army of stateless people. With their homeland 1,000 miles away, a communist state, the Free Poles, as they called themselves, elected to start a new life in Britain. The camps were intended as just temporary accommodation, but for some, it didn't work out like that.
24, funt 70. Funt 98, funt 98.
Mało kapusty.
Mało kapusty, nie ma, kochanie, małej kapusty, tylko dużo. Niech pani weźmie dużo, opłaca się. Duża. Niech pani sobie weźmie kapustę.
Nearly 40 years later, and Polish women bemoaning the rising cost of food. It's a scene that could be taking place in Warsaw, Gdansk or Gdynia. Polish women like to haggle about prices. But what would make this unusual for Poland is the quality and the quantity of goods on sale. There are no food queues here, prime Polish sausage and as much as you want or can afford. In fact, everything in this very special shop is the best quality that Poland can offer. The hams, bacon, sweets and pickles are so good that you can't buy any of them in the country they come from. The produce is just for export to earn hard currency. This is Ilford Park, just 2 miles from the centre of Newton Abbot in South Devon. The 14-acre site started life as an American Army hospital, but in 1947 it became a home for displaced Polish refugees, and it's remained so ever since, the last camp for Polish people who couldn't make the transition to the British way of life.
We call that Little Poland. We speak in Polish here, we have Polish customs, and it's just like Little Poland.
On the surface, Ilford Park looks the same as when American servicemen convalesced here during the war. Then it was known as Stover Camp, long rows of huts connected by covered walkways of concrete. But the Polish community has made it their own. The Holy Father from Krakow looks down on one of the communal dining halls and the 100 residents. Originally, there were 8 times that number. Everything here is provided for by the DHSS. Food, care and shelter, a commitment made by a grateful nation 40 years ago and kept to this day. Second-generation Poles are employed to bridge the language gap that could leave many of the residents in total isolation. It's not unusual for daughter to serve mother.
Mama będzie?
Będę.
The children of those original refugees also work in Ilford Park's hospital. With the average age of the residents now 75, the usual ailments of the elderly are nursed. But there's more to do here. Mental scars inflicted 4 decades ago have never healed. Memories of horrific violence, degradation and utter hopelessness are still so vivid that some of the residents have shut out the present. But others, by far the majority, exhibit a well-known Polish characteristic, a strong will to survive.
They're very resilient people, actually. It's amazing. And really, to compare with English old people, in marvelous condition, absolutely terrific. It's really amazed me, you know, the skins much better. I mean, I've seen some old, you know, in comparison, much better. And they've gone through such a lot, haven't they, really?
Indeed, the Polish experience over many centuries has been nothing but war, invasion and occupation. In 1939, its courageous but ill-equipped army faced the onslaught of the German Blitzkrieg and lost. The defeated Poles were at the hands of a merciless victor who thought of them as lower beings. What the Germans did to the Polish Jews is well known, how they created the ghettos and then sent tens of thousands to die in concentration camps. But it wasn't just the Jews. In February 1940, one of the most remarkable migrations of people the world has ever seen took place. over a fifth of Poland's population was moved from its homeland to deep within the borders of Germany's ally, Russia. 4 million men, women and children were loaded onto cattle trucks for the 2,000-mile journey east to Siberia and the labor camps.
It was very cold, and we have only huts without any heating, practically without any windows, and only benches to sleep. So if you have something to cover yourself, you will be a bit warm. Otherwise, you was practically freezing to death.
What work did you do?
I was cutting woods in the big forest, and they make us to make special amount of work. If you can't manage that, you get less less food. If next day you go, you are weaker, you cut a bit less, so you gain less food, and so in the end you're just very weak to go to work at all, and many people died there.
Mr. Elinsky is a paperboy. At 79, one of the oldest in the country. Each day he delivers the English newspapers. And on Thursday each week, the Polish newspaper for emigres printed in London. Although he's been in Britain since 1947, he's a keen follower of events in Poland. And he searches constantly for news of a brother he's not seen for nearly 50 years.
He was transferred by force again to Kazakhstan, you know?
In Russia?
In Russia. He was sent by force. If he came to Gdynia, he was just now locked up and sent by force to this there.
How old is he?
He was at the same age about I.
Is he still in a camp in Russia?
I don't know. No letter more. Only I have received postcard, you know, one day that I am again in Kazakhstan, you know, greetings, no more. That for me was enough, that he's by force been sent there.
He could be dead.
I hope so, yes.
Every one of the 116 residents has individual and difficult problems for the British manager and his team to solve. His reaction to his posting.
Horror, because I'd never ever worked in an old people's home before. I'd visited them, but I just didn't know what to expect. And when I crossed through the main gate on the first day, it was just like crossing over the border from one land to another, except, of course, that there were no customs officers or border guards, just a warm and friendly people to greet you.
Do you treat this place as an old people's home?
Well, in fact, it is a home for Polish people rather than a residential home for the elderly, but the vast majority of the people are well over pensionable age. In fact, about 40% of our population are aged 80 or over.
Their war pensions provide for their upkeep, and in return, the DHSS gives them pocket money each week to spend on what they want, about £10. This is used in the camp shop, on Polish sausage, and for the men, Polish vodka. It's also spent on little luxuries, bought on the weekly trip to Newton Abbot market.